Hello there, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to our webinar. This is Year End Part 2, where we're going to take you through processing your year end. My name's Duncan, and as you can see, I am joined by my colleague Alice, and we will be co-presenting the webinar today for you, taking you through the year end process start to finish and getting ready for the new tax year. Let's now have a look at what we'll cover in the webinar. So Alice is going to start things off by running you through your payroll year end, key dates and deadlines, and giving you a reminder of our preparation checklist of tasks to do before you process year end. She's then going to walk you through the full payroll year end process, start to finish, including your final submission of the year and producing P60s for your employees. I'll then return to take you through the steps to get ready for the new tax year, including updating tax codes and setting up small employers relief and employment allowance. And we'll finish with a run through of what's new for 2025 to 26, including some of the key legislation changes and some improvements to the latest version of Sage 50 Payroll. And of course, we'll be answering the questions throughout the webinar, so do get your questions submitted via that questions option. So that's what we've got in store for you. I'm now going to hand over to Alice, who's going to start things off with our introduction. So over to you, Alice.
Thanks so much, Duncan. So just moving on to that introduction then, some key dates and a few deadlines for payroll year end. Got a little kind of timeline for you for this, starting with the payroll year end update to version 31.00.229. So this was released on Monday, the 24th of February. We then have the 3rd of March, so this was when the newer version of the payroll update came out, which is version 31.00.231. This one did include the fix to a couple of small issues that have been identified in the initial release. And don't worry, this did only affect a very small number of customers, but our teams have been very busy sorting it all out and then building this new update for you. We then have the 5th of March, so this is when the update became mandatory. And this means if you haven't installed it yet, you will be prompted to install version 31 next time you open payroll, and you won't be able to access your company or companies without doing so. So this is just to make sure that you remain in compliant with the changes that the update contains, as Duncan mentioned, so new legislation and things like that, but also so you're ready to process payroll year end itself, which we cover today. We've then got the 5th of April, so this is the last day of the tax year, and by this date you should have completed payroll for the last pay date of the tax year and have submitted the FPS for that last period too. And then day after that, 6th of April, so this is the first day of the new tax year, so any pay date on or after this date will fall into the new tax year, of course 2025-26. So they're the kind of key dates to be aware of. Just a few deadlines as well, starting with the 19th of April. So this is the deadline for the final submission of the tax year. This is different to your last FPS though. It is done a little bit differently too as part of that year-end process, which I will be showing you today. And then last deadline here, 31st of May. This is the deadline for your employees to receive their P60s. So any employees who are still employed with you at the end of the tax year, or as of the 5th of April, they will get a P60. So remember, that's for people still employed. If you have had any leavers prior to the 5th of April, they won't get a P60. They should have instead got a P45 when they left. But they're the key dates and deadlines that you need to know. And I would like to show you what we've kind of got planned for both of the payroll year end webinars. So in part 1, we did cover installing and preparing for year end. Then of course, today what we're focusing on in part 2 is processing payroll year end step by step, including that final year end submission and producing your P60s as well. And for those of you who didn't attend part 1, I just want to kind of go over that preparation checklist again. So you will be familiar with this if you came to part 1. But before you process payroll year end itself, you must have done the following. So of course, you must have installed your year end update. So that's again version 31.00.231. And you should have processed and updated all of the periods in the 2024-25 tax year. This last pay period as well, it does include processing any leavers who left before the 5th of April and submitting your last FPS and if necessary the EPS for the last pay period as well. And then as always, better to be safe than sorry is to take a backup of your payroll data. Very important all year round, but especially around, installations and payroll year end itself. Should anything go wrong, you've got your data secure elsewhere. Now you can find out more information on this just using that link at the bottom of this slide. But once these are done, you will be ready to process payroll year end whenever you're ready. So payroll year end in Sage 50 Payroll is just 6 steps to work through. But before I demonstrate these in the program, I would like to give you a bit more of an idea of what each step is. So first one here is choosing the tax year, which this year is just going to be the 2024-25 tax year. So you're going to choose the tax year that you're ending. Next step there is the internet submission. So this is that final submission that we've been mentioning, and this does need to be submitted by that deadline of the 19th of April. It is an employer payment summary or an EPS, but it is different to the normal EPS, as I said, that you would send if you were reclaiming statutory parental payments, for example. After this, step 3 is to produce your P60s. So these must be distributed to your employees by the 31st of May. And there are a few different ways that you can do these and produce these P60s in Sage 50 Payroll. So I'll give you a bit more information on each of those options very shortly. After this, again, it's backing up your data. You will hear us say that a couple of times during the webinar, just because it is so important, hence why it has its own step. Then step 5 is to complete year end. So this is going to clear down the year-to-date values for the 24-25 tax year. It's also going to move your process date onto the 6th of April, so it's going to move you into that new tax year. And it's important to know that when I say the year-to-dates are cleared down, nothing is deleted. So the information is still in payroll, but it's now last year's figures. So they're going to be cleared down to make room for the new tax year's year-to-dates instead. And then last but not least is the step to distribute the year-end returns. So this basically just brings up a window with a reminder of those deadlines that I mentioned a bit earlier. And yeah, a little congratulations message to say that you've completed year-end. So they're the 6 steps that I'm going to be demonstrating. But before we look at these in the program, I just want to go back to the P60s and kind of talk about those different options. So I did mention there's a few different ways to produce them in Sage 50 Payroll. First of all, you've got the option to upload the online P60s to Sage HR, very similar to how you would if you do the online pay slips, or this would be Online Bureau if you're an accountant. So that go onto the online portal and each employee would be able to access them either online or on the mobile app. This does seem to be the most popular way that people are going to be producing the P60s this year. You could also email the P60s, similar to what you would if you already email the pay slips. And if you do already email the pay slips, this is going to use the same configuration settings that you've got set up for that as well. And then other option there is to print the P60s onto plain paper. So no need for stationery anymore. In fact, Sage and HMRC no longer provide stationery, so it would just be a case of printing them onto plain paper from the programme. Something else I want to mention, you don't have to use the same option for all of your employees either. So let's say you didn't have everyone set up for the online services. Maybe you've got half of your employees set up. You could upload half of those employees' P60s, but then print or email for the rest. So you can kind of mix and match the way you do the P60s, depending on what's best for you and what suits you. So that is a bit of an outline of the steps to process payroll year end and a little bit more on the P60s as well. I'll turn off my camera and it is now time to go for a demonstration of payroll year end. So as you can see, I have processed my last pay run of the tax year. My last updated and last FPS date is the 31st of March 2025. So this was my last pay run of the tax year as I run a monthly payroll. Now, first things first, when you're going to go and do a payroll year end, you do need to change your process date. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we're going to change this to the 5th of April 2025, so the last day of the tax year. So this is the date that we would recommend that you run all of the year-end tasks on and produce the P60s as well, especially if you're running any year-end reports, for example, too. Just kind of best practice to keep it on the 5th of April there. Now you've got 2 options in terms of where you process year-end, but let's just go to the payroll year-end section first of all. And this is that kind of a flow chart there, which I showed you on the slides. So it's like a process map there. So these are the 6 steps that you need to complete. I do think majority of people do it this way. But if you do want a different view of these steps, you can just click on this Payroll Year End option from the tasks on the left. This is going to kind of bring up a checklist of the steps instead. So it'll prompt you to complete the first step first of all, then it'll bring up a checklist. And you can kind of basically tick off the steps as you go. So if you would prefer it that way and a bit more of a visual way of viewing the steps, I would recommend using that option there. But I am going to work from the flowchart today, so I'm just going to stick to this. That first step, as we've seen, is to choose the tax year that we're ending. Now this does normally default to the last payroll year end that's been done. So like mine, yours might say 23-24. That's totally fine, but we do need to change that. So we'll just click on this. We do get a message just asking if we want to include all of the employees who've been paid in the tax year. So I'll go ahead and click yes. And here is that window that comes up. So we can see it has defaulted to 24-25. If that's wrong, you can just select it from the drop down. And again, the report date is correct, but you can change that just using the calendar if needed. So 5th of April, 2025. The only other thing in here is the cessation date. So if the company has ceased trading, you can just type in or use the calendar there to pop in that date and then just click OK. And we can see a message there confirming that the tax year has been changed to 2024/2025. So simple as that, that is step 1 done. Next step is the final submission. So I will just click on this. So it does look like a kind of normal employer payment summary there, but a couple of differences to be aware of. So I'll click continue. You'll check over your company details there and click submit. Now this submission doesn't include any employee or payment details as they were sent in the last FPS of the tax year. But what this mainly does is send an indicator to HMRC that it is the last submission of the tax year. So you can see final submission for the year, yes. So that's the kind of flag there. And something else that this summary window also shows, just to kind of make you aware, employment allowance and apprenticeship levy year to date are both kind of flagged there as NA. So this occurs whether or not you claim employment allowance or have apprenticeship levy liability. Totally normal. You can just continue to send your year-end submission with those both saying NA there. And if you do want to apply for employment allowance in the new tax year, Duncan will kind of go over these steps a little bit later. I'll go ahead and click submit and we'll wait for that to go across to HMRC. A couple of people have asked as well if they do need to manually change anything to indicate that it's the final submission, but no you don't. Payroll does have this set up already. You just need to submit it in this step from the payroll run process. And we can see that's been sent successfully, and that is step 2 done. Next step, producing the P60s. Just a reminder that that deadline for issuing these P60s is the 31st of May. And whether you're printing, emailing or uploading, this is the button you'll click on. So you've got all 3 options in here. We will go to print or email first. And we'll just select email from the drop down first of all. So this is going to email the P60s with the same configuration settings you've got for emailing payslips. So if you email via Outlook, for example, or if the payslips are password protected, so will the P60s will be as well. Basically, any specific configuration settings will be the same. Or if I was printing, I would select print. I can select this box to preview the reports before printing. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click print to load up that preview for you. Now, because some of my employees are set up for online services or email, it is asking if I want these employees to be included in the print option. So essentially producing the P60s for them in 2 different ways. If you don't want these employees to have printed P60s, you only want to upload or email theirs, just click no, and this will deselect them, or you can still have everyone selected. So I'm just going to click yes, totally preference how you produce them. And as I said, you can produce them in more than one way for the employees. So this is the preview of the P60s, and this will print exactly as they are here. Remember, that is onto plain paper, so stationery is no longer needed. In the top left, you do have the options to print, so you can print from here, or if you wanted to export the P60s as well, maybe save them, as a PDF or something on your computer, you absolutely can as well. But we can see we've got them for all of the employees here too. So I'll just go back from this. So that was printing or emailing. The other option you've also got is uploading the P60s. So as I said, this is the most popular option for producing the P60s so far this year. And today we will be uploading the P60s to Sage HR, but as I said, if you're an accountant, this will be a slightly different process using the online bureau portal instead. So I've just clicked upload there, and it's brought up this window. And we can see we've got 5 employees set up for the online services. Now, something to note, if you are using Sage HR, unlike the payslips, where you can schedule a day for them to be published, P60s can only be uploaded immediately. If you do want them to go up on a certain day, feel free to complete all of the other steps of payroll year end, then simply come back to payroll another day, set your process date to the 5th of April 2025, and then you can come back to this step and produce the P60s from there. So I'll go ahead and click upload. Give that a second to upload them. And then once they have been, there will be a message to say that they've been successfully uploaded, and you'll have the option to view them there. Perfect. So we can access the online services from there. I'm actually already logged in, so I'll bring that up and just refresh the board there. And this is Sage HR, so this is where they're uploaded to. Now, I'm actually logged in as the HR admin. So this is my account, and I've kind of got access to all of the settings and all of the employees and things too, but the employees will only be able to see their own payslips and P60s. Now, to view the P60s, I'm just going to go to the payslip section. We've got 2 tabs here. One of them's for P60s. And here I can see those ones for the 2024-25 tax year that I've just published there. So I've just uploaded these to my employees. So they will have got a notification to let them know that it's available. To view the P60 just for one employee, if I just wanted to check on one person, I could do this by going to Company. And I could just click on someone's profile here. Go to Payslips and P60s. And again, we've got that P60s tab there at the top. And that's that new P60 there, which I can view. Get a nice clear view of that there. So that's a P60. I can save that as a PDF from here. Or I've also got the option of downloading that too. So a couple of different options there. So if you do want to know more about the online services, specifically the payslips and P60s, we do have a few upcoming sessions going over exactly this. And I will tell you a little bit more about the dates for those in the further support later on. But that's the online P60s. So they're produced now, they've been uploaded. So I'm just going to close this. What I can do now as well is tick this little box to say that we've produced the P60s. So we've completed that step, and then click close, and that's that step done. So they're the biggest steps out of the way, to be honest. We're over halfway through payroll year end at this point. And next step would be to back up the data. This is just going to bring up the backup wizard for you. So I'll click next. Leave those default files highlighted there. That's going to back up everything that you need. And then I can browse to where I'd like it saved. So if I just call this like payroll year end process 24-25, something like that, just so I know exactly what that is, I can click save, next and finish, wait for that backup to complete there. There we go, and I know that my data is now secure. So if I ever need to restore that backup, I know exactly which one that is. Now, one of the last steps to complete payroll year end is to complete year end. So I'm just going to click on this. Just a little reminder of those year to dates. So I'm going to click yes to this. It is going to clear those down. Little reminder there about tax codes and things too. And if you do have any employees where you need to update the mileage or anything like that, you can click yes. Otherwise, just click no. And we can see tax year end clearing completed. And just a reminder that that data has not been deleted as well. So this is basically saying that those year to dates have become historical data and they've cleared down, as I mentioned earlier, ready for the new tax year's year to dates. Another thing this has done is move that process date onto the 6th of April 2025. So we're now in the new tax year. Last step, distribute year end returns. So we'll just click on this. This is basically just a little kind of reminder of those deadlines I mentioned. So distributing the P60s by the 31st of May and that final year end submission as well by the 19th of April. along with a congratulations message, because as long as we've done all of these steps, we have now completed payroll year end. So I'll click close. So that is payroll year end start to finish, just those 6 steps in the programme. So as long as you've done all those preparation steps, it is just a nice easy process of clicking through those steps and kind of working through them. Now, before we do move on to getting ready for the new tax year, I did mention that the employees can view their P60s on the mobile app too. So I do have just a very short video of kind of how quickly they can access them. If I just play that then. So obviously I uploaded the P60s. As soon as those P60s are uploaded, they are going to get a notification if they use the mobile app there, which they can click on. That's going to take them straight to the payslips and P60s. Similar to the online portal, they'll click the P60s tab, open that P60 there, and they can view it easily on their phone nice and quickly. And they do have some share options, which includes kind of downloading it or anything that you'll need to do there. So a nice quick process for them. But after this, as I say, that is the payroll year-end steps done. After this, it's going to be a case of getting ready for the new tax year. So for this, I will pass you back over to Duncan.
Thank you very much, Alice. So next part of the webinar is all about getting ready for your first payroll of the new tax year. Now, if you need to get on and do this before you've completed all of the steps in payroll year end, you can absolutely do so. You would just need to follow the steps that I'm going to go through in this checklist. And then when you're ready to go back and complete year end, simply change your process date back to the 5th of April, and then you can return to any of those year end tasks you still need to do. But let's now have a look at the steps you'll need to complete before you process your first period of the year. So 4 steps in this checklist. Number 1 is to double check that you are using the correct version of the software. So that is version 31.00.231. And you can check that version number if you click Help and then About. And on the support page that opens, have a look under Program Details to find your version number from there. Second step is to update your employees' tax codes. So there'll be one global change to remove week 1, month 1 flags, and then you'd apply any individual tax code notices that you may have received. Step 3 is to apply for employment allowance, if applicable, in the new tax year. And there have been some significant changes to employment allowance, so it is available to more employers moving forward. And then step 4, again, if applicable, is to set up small employers relief. And once you've been through this checklist, you're ready to get on and process period 1. So let's talk about the tax codes. Now, because the personal allowance remains frozen, and it has been frozen since 2021, it does mean that there's no automatic uplift to tax codes that end in L, M, or N. And the emergency tax code for 25 to 26 remains as it was, which is still 1257L, representing that frozen personal allowance of £12,570. However, you do still need to clear any week 1, month 1 flags for existing employees' tax codes so that their tax calculates on a cumulative basis with effect from the start of the new tax year. So best way to do that is by running the global changes option. You may also need to make changes to individual employee tax codes, depending on their circumstances, if you've received any tax code notices. So these are known as P9 notices. They usually come through in February or March, and they'll tell you any changes to the tax code that apply from the 6th of April. If you get these online, you can apply them using the secure mailbox in Sage 50 Payroll. If you get them in the post, you would just make the changes manually. So I want to show you these first 2 steps. I just bring those slides down. Now, first of all, to check your version number, if you go to Help and then About, you'll find it under Program Details. So you can see mine is the latest version, 31.00.231. And because I'm now setting up the new tax year, I do need to make sure that my process date is set into the new tax year. So if I click onto Change Process Date, mine is set to the first day of the new tax year, so I'm correctly in 2025 to 26. Now, looking at the tax codes, we can see the current tax codes in the employee list, just in this tax code column. And for my employees, I just have one of them that's on a month one tax code. And that could have been a recent starter that maybe didn't have a P45, or there could be any other reason why they've been put on that code. But moving into the new tax year, the week one, month one flags need to be cleared. And as I say, the best way to do this so that you don't forget anyone is to do it using global changes. So first of all, make sure all of your employees are in view. So have a quick check of your criteria to make sure you're not excluding anyone on hold, on holiday, or current year leavers. And then in the outline window, just here, you should ensure that you've selected the All Employees folder. So you can get that by clicking Outline, and I now know that all employees are in view. To do the global change, I'm going to click onto Clear and then Swap. And you can see that has highlighted everyone. And then you go to the Tasks option, come down to Global Changes, you go over to Tax Codes, and then it's this option at the bottom to clear the week one, month one flag. So when I click on that, it confirms that it will clear the flag for the selected employees. I'm going to click Yes to continue. And it confirms the number of employees that were updated. And if you keep an eye on this tax code here for my last employee, as soon as I click OK, you'll see that it's now removed that month one flag. So that is the only global change that you need to do. But as I say, you may receive individual tax code notices. And if you get yours online, you'll be able to view them and apply them directly from Sage 50 Payroll. So to use the secure mailbox, you would go to the e-submissions tasks here in the bottom left-hand corner. And then you would open up IR Secure Mailbox, which will then open the mailbox in your software. And if it doesn't automatically check for and download new mail, you just need to click on this button at the top, which will then connect to your online mailbox with HMRC, and then it will retrieve the latest notices. So when I do that, you can see that it has retrieved 3 P9 notices, as you can see in this folder on the left-hand side. And when I select it, I can see that these came through in February, and I've got a notice of coding for these 3 employees. So if you haven't got many of them, you could open them one at a time. So you can either double click or select the notice and click open. It'll tell you the change that you need to make. So this will be the new tax code and effective from date. And then you can go ahead and click apply to automatically make that change. And you can even do that ahead of time because it has an effective from date. So that new tax code won't come into play until your process date is set to the 6th of April or later. Now, if you don't want to do it one at a time, if you've got quite a few of these to apply, you can select multiple notices in this screen. So if you want to select everything, you've got these little icons to clear and then swap the selection. You can see all 3 of them are highlighted now. Or if it's just some of them in the list you want to select, you could hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. And then if you click on the first and last notice in a list, it'll then highlight everything in between. So this way I can open all 3 at the same time. I can see what the tax code changes are, and I can print this screen if I need to. I'm just going to go ahead and apply the change by clicking apply. I'm going to click yes to continue. And you can see that those 3 tax code changes are now successful. So I'm going to close out of the secure mailbox. And if I just show you one of the employees who had a tax code change, I'm going to go onto the employment tab. And you can see it now shows that new tax code, 1257L. And if I want to see a history of the previous tax codes, I can click on the plus icon. And I can see that previously it was at 1288L. So that change, effective from the 6th of April, has now been made to that employee. If you don't get them online, you can apply the change manually in the employee record. So to do that, just open the employee record and go on the employment tab. You would then click the plus sign next to the tax code, and you would add the latest tax code you've received, and then you can type it in just here, and you can enter your effective from date, which for a P9 notice would be the 6th of April, and that will then be added manually to be used from that date. So whichever way you get your notices, if it's online, you can apply them from the mailbox. If you get them in the post, you would do it in the employee record. So that covers the change to tax codes. The next step on our checklist is to apply for employment allowance if your business is eligible for it. Now, the employment allowance is a government incentive to employ staff. It's available to most employers, but there are some exclusions that apply, and it allows you to reduce the amount of employers' national insurance that you pay each tax year up to the annual allowance amount. Now, previously, it was £5,000 per year, but it is increasing in 2025 to 26 to £10,500 per year. So that has more than doubled, and it could be vital support to offset some of the other increases in employers' national insurance. Now, it has also been opened up to more employers, as previously there was a threshold of employers' national insurance to be eligible for the allowance. So there was a limit of £100,000 of employers' national insurance per year to be eligible for employment allowance, but that has now been removed. So it is open to more employers. You're not restricted by your total employer's NI. And because it's been opened up to more employers, it no longer counts as state aid. So the state aid rules no longer apply when you make your submission. So if you're eligible for this, you can apply for it anytime from the 6th of March. So applications are open now. Your process date must be set in the new tax year in order to do this. And you'll be sending an EPS submission and then selecting a box to confirm that you are eligible. Now, I will quickly just run through the exclusions. So it is not available to public bodies or businesses doing more than half their work in the public sector. And it can't be used for companies with one director who's the only employee liable for employer NI, so single director companies. If you're a group of companies or charities, only one company in the group can claim the allowance. So you would choose the company that's most likely to use the full employment allowance. So let's take a look at how you'd set this up. Just returning to the demo now. So I already have my process date set in the new tax year. So I'm going to go to my company tasks and then into settings. And from the details tab, this is where I find the option to apply for employment allowance, EA. So all you need to do is to click on that button and you would select not applicable to the state aid question. So it doesn't apply in the new tax year. You would then click on to submit, and you'll then be prompted to send an employer payment summary, an EPS. Just do at the start of the tax year, and that then covers you for the rest of this year. So I'm going to click on to continue, where it shows the gateway registration and company details. And then when I click submit, you can see the tax year for this submission is 25-26. And this will be the EPS that's marked yes in the employment allowance field. So Alice did the final submission of the year. I'm doing the first submission of the new year, and this is to apply for my employment allowance. Click on to submit, and that EPS is then sent to HMRC. Once that submission's complete, all you then need to do is to close the confirmation screen and then tick the box to confirm that you're eligible for employment allowance. Now, this message just lets you know that you won't get a confirmation letter for this. And if you're part of a group, only one company or charity in the group can claim it. So have a read through that and click OK. And then to save the company settings, click OK again. So that is now set up. And when I run my P32 report for month one, when I've completed month one's payroll, I'll then be able to start reducing my employer NI. So it will show how much I've claimed for the employment allowance, and I'll keep claiming that until I've used the full £10,500. So that is your employment allowance. Definitely worth checking if you qualify for that now. You can find more information in our knowledge base article and also on the guidance from gov.uk. So final step to get ready for the new tax year is to set up small employers relief if your business qualifies for this. Now, this is different to employment allowance. It's in no way related. And it's a relief that you get when reclaiming statutory parental payments, such as maternity, adoption, or paternity pay. And you would qualify for small employers relief if your total Class 1 national insurance contributions were £45,000 or less in the tax year before the qualifying or matching week. So it's worth checking this at the start of each tax year to see if you are still eligible for it or whether you're not. And you'll need to tick a box in your company settings to indicate that you are if you're going to be claiming this. Now, if you don't get this, you still claim back 92% of your statutory parental payments. But with small employers relief, you get 100% of the statutory pay plus a further 8.5% as NI compensation. Now, that used to be 3%, so you used to get 103% back. As a small employer, that's going up to 108.5% in the new tax year. So you can read more about what it is and whether you would qualify from the link on the screen, but let's just have a look at where you would set this up. So first of all, if you want an easy way of checking your total Class 1 national insurance contributions for a previous tax year, here's one way you could do it. So from the payroll tasks, if you just change your process date back to the 5th of April, back into the previous year, and then have a look through your payroll links for the P32 report. And normally you run this 1 month at a time to work out your payment to HMRC. But if you run it for the full year, so from month 1 to 12, you can then easily check your gross national insurance, item 4, for the tax year just ended. And in this example, £23,666 is below that £45,000 threshold. And that confirms that my payroll still qualifies for small employers relief. So I would just set my process date back into the new tax year. And if I go to company and then settings, I can go ahead and tick this box, confirming that I'm eligible for small employers relief. So I am actually currently reclaiming statutory maternity pay for an employee on maternity leave. So I need to make sure that that box is ticked before I process any pay for them in the new tax year. So that is your small employers relief. And if you've completed those 4 steps, you're then ready to get on and process your payroll for your first pay date in 2025 to 26. So that does lead us nicely on to what's new for 2025 to 26. And I'm going to start by running through some of the key legislation changes on the slide here. So first of all, in relation to tax codes, there was no uplift to the tax codes because the personal allowance remains frozen, and that means that the emergency tax code remains at 1257L. For the other PAYE legislation, there are no changes to rates and bands in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, but there are some minor changes to the starter rate and basic rate bandwidths in Scotland. So all of those legislation changes are built in to version 31, so nothing you need to do. For awareness, there are some changes to those bands. National insurance is the area where there have been quite a few changes for the new tax year. So the employer national insurance rate increases from 13.8% to 15% on earnings above the secondary threshold. And the secondary threshold has been reduced from £9,100 per year down to £5,000 per year. So clearly this will mean an increase in employer NI costs moving into the new year. In addition to that, the lower earnings limit has gone up to £125 per week. So that's the level of earnings that are required to qualify for the statutory payments. Next up, national minimum wage and national living wage increases with effect from the 1st of April 2025. So national living wage for employees aged 21 and above is going up to £12.21 per hour. And there are also increases to the 18 to 20 rate and 16 and 17-year-olds. And you can check the new rates in the legislation settings of your programme, which I will show you in the next demo. On to statutory payments. Statutory sick pay goes up to £118.75 per week. And the standard rate of statutory parental payments increases to £187.18 per week. And that small employers relief, NI compensation, has gone up from 3% to 8.5%. So again, these are all built in to the legislation settings, so the new rates will kick in automatically for absences in the new year. Student loan thresholds have increased for plans 1, 2 and 4. The postgraduate loan threshold remains the same. And auto-enrolment thresholds and the earnings trigger remain the same for the new tax year, so no changes just there. Now, I mentioned that there are quite big changes to employer national insurance. So I just wanted to mention that we have created a report that will help you to forecast the employer NI costs based on what you paid your employees in previous periods. And that is a report that's available to download from our help centre. So you can copy that into your user-defined folder and you can run that based on last year's data to get an indication of how much that change will cost you as an employer. So I have linked to the article where you can get the report and also the instructions on how to use it. And I'll give you a quick look at it as we go through the next demo. So let me just bring these slides down. First of all, if you do want to check any legislation settings, set your process date into the new tax year. And then from the company tasks here on the left-hand side, you can go into legislation. And that shows you all the legislation settings for 25 to 26. So for example, for national insurance, you can see that the employer rate has increased to the 15%. Secondary threshold is reduced to the £5,000 per year. You want to check minimum wage rates in the new year. £10 an hour for 18 to 20s, £7.55 for 16 and 17-year-olds. That's all available there as well. You can also run legislation reports that will show this same information. So quite handy if you ever need to check something quickly. Now the employer NI cost indication report I've already downloaded from our help centre. I've copied it into my user-defined folder here on the left-hand side. So just to show you how this report works, you can run it for historical dates in order to create a forecast of the national insurance cost in the new year. So because I've completed all of my payroll for 24-25, I'm just going to run it across the whole year. So 6th of April 24 to 5th of April 25. And the information you would see here for each employee is what they were paid last year, what the national insurance cost was at the old rate of 13.8% and the old secondary threshold, and what the projected cost would be according to the new legislation if everything else remained the same. So we can see for this first employee, there's a difference each month of about £70 or £869 in a year. And if I go to the last page of the report, it's also given me report totals. So I've run this over a year. So based on what was paid last year, and obviously pay rises might come in, there's other factors to consider. I can see what my total national insurance difference would be. But don't forget as well, if you're eligible to claim employment allowance, you'll be able to claim back more of that employer NI than you could previously. So report might be helpful. As I say, follow the link in your handout to find the instructions. It'll take you to an article, looks something like this. There's a fantastic video here that takes you through how to run the report and how to download it as well. So do check that out if it will be useful to you. So we'll take a look at next a couple of new features in the programme. So there is a new statutory payment being introduced from the 6th of April, Statutory Neonatal Care Pay, or SNCP. It applies for babies born 6th of April 2025 or later and is available to parents of babies who are admitted to neonatal care within 28 days of their birth and who stay in hospital for at least 7 continuous days. So this can be accrued up to 12 weeks of paid leave, in addition to other parental leave entitlements. So depending on how long the baby is in neonatal care. And it's paid at the standard rate for statutory payments of £187.18 or 90% of average weekly earnings. Now, in the case of a mother or primary adopter, they would usually get their maternity pay or adoption pay at the time the baby is receiving neonatal care. So they would take the neonatal care pay at the end of that maternity or adoption pay entitlement. But for partners who may have already used any statutory paternity pay, they could then use SNCP whilst the baby is in hospital, should they need to take that leave. Now, I will show you where you would enter the details in the programme, but we've got a fantastic guide that explains more about this and how to process it if you ever need to. The other change in the software that I want to show you is in relation to salary sacrifice pensions. So we have added an option now for you to automatically include the employer NI savings in the employer contribution for salary sacrifice schemes. So this has been near the top of our wish list for some time. So it's great that we've been able to implement this. So what the program will do is it will calculate the employer NI saving, and it will then automatically add that to the employer's contribution, whether that's a fixed amount or a percentage. It does that each period for most employees if they're a non-director. And it can also be used for directors, but the NI saving is calculated and added in the final period of the year for directors due to the way that directors' national insurance is calculated. So previously to this feature, if you do include employer NI savings, you've probably done it as fixed amount contributions. So this is something that could be a good time saver for you in the future. So I just want to show you those two features. If I just return back to the demo, starting with neonatal care pay. If you ever need to set this up, it'll be on the absence tab in the employee record. And you can see there is a new option for SNCP. So from here, you'd record the relevant details. So date of birth, date of admission to neonatal care. Check that the average weekly gross pay is high enough, and then you can record kind of the weeks that the employee is taking as leave. And your software will calculate the statutory payment for you. The other one is the pensions. So if I just take you to the pension schemes, I have a salary sacrifice pension set up. So at the moment, I've just got the salary sacrifice scheme box ticked, and you'll see that there's this new tick box where we can now add the employer NI savings to the pension contribution. So I'm just going to tick this for my pension scheme. And if I just set my next pay date, 30th of April, I have one employee who I've set up on this scheme. They're in the salary sacrifice pension, and I've got their contribution as 10% of their pensionable pay. So that's how much they would sacrifice. But for the employer contribution at the moment, it's fixed amount. So I've manually calculated the employer contribution plus the NI saving. But moving forward, I can set that to a percentage as well, or indeed a fixed amount. And we've got our pension scheme set up so it's going to add on the employer NI saving. So just to show you that in enter payments, now I've made that change. I've just put a basic salary of £3,000 through. It's a 10% salary sacrifice, so that's £300. The employer is also contributing 10% plus their NI saving. So when I click onto employers, you can see it's worked out £645 in total. So that's the £300 sacrificed, £300 employer contribution, and 15% of £300 is what the employer is saving on the national insurance, and that's your extra £45. So it does that calculation for you if you have a scheme that works in that way. So again, you can read more about that new feature by following the link on the slide. So those are the two big ones, I would say. Other new features improvements include the addition of Payroll Assistant into all variants of Sage 50 Payroll. It was previously a professional feature, but now you'll find that the health check option above your employee list has now changed to Payroll Assistant, so it gives a bit more enhanced functionality. You can read more about how that works on our help centre. If any of you are Freeport or investment zone employers, you will now need to record the workplace postcode for employees who are on a Freeport or investment zone NI category. So there is a new field in the employee record for you to do that if required. And there's some new validation for the reduced rate NI category, usually category B, which will validate an employee's date of birth to ensure that it is being used by employees that would qualify based on their age. So for more details on that and everything else that's new in version 31, do check out the link on the slide. So that's about it for what's new in the new tax year. I would now like to hand back to Alice, who's going to run us through a bit of further support. So back to you, Alice.
Thanks again, Duncan. Yeah, but in terms of further support, we do have loads of amazing support available to you. So while I go through this, our helpers are going to continue answering your questions in the Q&A just until we run out of time. So first thing to mention is upcoming webinars. In case you missed it, we do have our part 1 to Payroll Year End, and this is going to go through step by step the installation of the new update and preparing for year end as well. So everything you need to know ahead of actually processing year end, which we showed today. We do have dates up to the 25th of March for this webinar, so do get yourself signed up if you missed that. And as I mentioned at the start, we're doing more sessions this year, changing it up a little bit, and yeah, adding more sessions to help you with certain topics that we get more queries on at this time of year. So this includes things like Directors' National Insurance, corrections over year end, starters and leavers, as well as online pay slips and P60s too. So that is one, diving into Sage HR a little bit more there, which we have a couple of sessions on. So I'd love to see you at some of these sessions. Head to sage.co.uk/webinars to see what's coming up and kind of what each of those webinars includes. And then, yeah, you'll be able to secure your spot from there too. Something else to be aware of is the Help Centre. So this is sage.co.uk/help. Here you can search the knowledge base for anything you need a bit more information on. You can access those support guides, demonstration videos, recordings of all of our previous webinars, and should you need to get in touch with us or you need technical support or anything like that, you are able to contact us through there too. We've got those contact options there. Something else is Sage University. So you can set up a free account from here and you can access loads of free e-learning courses, bite-sized learning as well. It's a great way to expand your knowledge on Sage 50 Payroll or other Sage products that you've got. So it's not just Sage 50 Payroll. And it's a really great way to earn some certification for that training that you do as well. So that's sageu.com. And then last thing I want to make you aware of today is our bespoke one-to-one training services. So if you do feel that you need a little bit more one-to-one support over Payroll Year End, with Payroll Year End or even something different within Payroll itself, I would highly advise getting more information on these and seeing about getting yourself booked onto these. The team who provide these sessions are fantastic. They're some of our lovely colleagues here at Newcastle. They are really amazing at what they do. So I'll be launching a poll on this in a moment, just for those of you who are interested. They will tailor the session to you as well, so whatever you feel that you need more support with or specific topics that you want them to cover, they will be able to tailor that session to you. It's really great there. So I'm just going to launch that poll on your screen now. And if you would like more information or prices for is a chargeable service on the one-to-one services, just select yes here and submit your answer there. And one of my colleagues will be able to reach out and kind of get that the ball rolling with that as well. I know from experience, technical support can get very busy over Payroll Year End especially, so this might be the perfect option for you to get what you need. But yeah, I'll leave this open for a few moments. And what me and Duncan will do, we'll just go on mute for a few minutes just to kind of check on that Q&A. So I'll leave that poll open a couple of minutes and then we'll be back to kind of wrap things up. So see you in a moment. Hello everyone, that is just us back again. It looks like we are just about out of time, but we will try and leave the webinar open and get through as many of those questions as we can. If you are leaving us now, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it. And a reminder as well, if you do want to keep any of the Q&A, just feel free to copy and paste these into something like a Word document for future reference. One last ask from us, you will see a short survey as you exit the webinar. So if you do have just a moment to fill that out, we would really, really appreciate that. If you've got anything to say about the webinar, that would be great. But on behalf of me, Duncan, and our colleagues behind the scenes, enjoy the rest of your week. Would love to see you on another webinar very soon. As I say, I will leave the webinar open a couple of moments longer just to kind of finish up that Q&A. But other than that, thanks again for joining us, and it's goodbye for now.